You know how family is supposed to be the one place where someone always has your back no matter what. I believed that for a long time, too. Then one ordinary Tuesday afternoon in my small apartment just off Franklin Street in Chapel Hill, I opened my work email and felt the ground shift under everything I thought I knew about loyalty. If you have ever watched someone you trusted quietly rewrite your story so they could star in it, instead, I hope you will stay with me through this one. Drop a comment below if any part of it feels familiar. I would really like to know I am not the only one who has lived through something like this. My older sister Paige had always been the golden one in my mother's eyes. Everyone said she had that natural charm, the kind that made people want to hand her opportunities without asking too many questions. I was 28, working as a marketing coordinator at a small firm near the university, grinding out campaign strategies and client decks while trying to build a little freelance work on the side. My mother, Nancy, never missed a chance to remind me that Paige was just looking out for the family. I used to roll my eyes and let it go. That Tuesday changed everything. The email sat at the top of my inbox like it had been waiting for me. It was from a client I had been courting for weeks, a local tech startup that needed a full rebrand and content strategy. The subject line read, "Thanks for the brilliant deck, excited to move forward with Paige's team." I stared at it for a full minute, certain I had misread. I had never sent that deck. I had been building it in secret late nights after work because I wanted to prove I could land something bigger than the small projects my boss kept giving me. My older sister did not even work at my firm. She sold software at a bigger company across town. There was no reason for her name to be on anything that belonged to me. I called her before I could talk myself out of it. She answered on the second ring voice, bright and effortless, the same tone she used when she wanted everyone to believe she was doing them a favor. "Hey, I was just about to text you," she said. "Did you see the email from that startup? I went ahead and sent them the strategy we talked about last month. Mom said you were swamped with your regular work, so I figured I would help move things along. You know how she worries about you burning out." I sat very still at my kitchen table, the afternoon light coming through the blinds in thin stripes across the laptop screen. We had not talked about any strategy last month. I had mentioned the client once in passing during a family dinner I had already regretted attending. My older sister had nodded, asked a few polite questions, and changed the subject to her own latest commission check. That was all. "You sent them my deck?" I asked. My voice came out flatter than I meant it to. She laughed, light and unbothered. "Well, technically it was our deck now. I polished it up a little, added some of the sales angles I use at my job. It landed really well. They wanted to move fast. I told them we could start next week. Don't worry, I made sure your name was in the footnotes somewhere. Footnotes. Like I was an afterthought in my own work." I hung up a few minutes later after she had finished explaining how this was actually good for both of us, and how my mother had already texted her to say how proud she was that the girls were finally working together. My mother had not texted me at all. That night, I opened a new note on my phone and started writing down the date, the time, the exact words she had used. It felt ridiculous at first, like I was building a case against my own sister. But something in my chest had gone cold and tight, and I could not shake the feeling that this was not the first time she had stepped in and made my work disappear into hers. The next morning at the office, I kept my head down and tried to focus on the projects that actually paid my rent. Around 10, my coworker Ethan Cole stopped by my desk with 2 coffees and the kind of careful expression people wear when they are about to say something they know will hurt. "You okay?" he asked, setting one cup down. "You look like you did not sleep." Ethan and I had been on the same small team for almost a year. He handled analytics, I handled the creative side. We had the kind of easy working rhythm that made long days tolerable. I trusted him more than I trusted most people in the office. I almost told him everything right then. Instead, I shrugged and said I was fine. He did not push. He just nodded and went back to his desk, but I caught him glancing over a few times during the morning. That small, quiet concern stayed with me longer than it should have. 2 days later, my mother called. She never called during work hours, unless she wanted something. I stepped outside onto the little balcony behind the office building, the smell of cut grass and car exhaust mixing in the warm North Carolina air. Your sister told me about the new client. She said skipping any hello. I think it is wonderful that you two are finally teaming up. She has such a head for business. You should listen to her more. She only wants what is best for you. I gripped the metal railing until my knuckles ached. She sent them work I had not finished and put her name on it first. There was a short pause, then my mother sighed the same disappointed sound she had used since I was a teenager, whenever I complained about anything involving my older sister. Brooke, you cannot keep score like this. Family helps family. Your sister saw an opportunity and took it. You should be grateful she included you at all. Some people would have just taken the whole thing. I stood there after she hung up the sun warm on my back and felt something sharp and bitter settle behind my ribs. Grateful. She wanted me to be grateful that my own ideas had been taken repackaged and handed back to me with my sister's name on top like a favor. That evening, I texted my best friend Lena Voss. She worked at the university hospital in a completely different field, but she had known me since college and had a way of cutting through my tendency to minimize things. Lena called me back within 10 minutes. Tell me exactly what happened. She said no small talk. And do not soften it, I told her. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Brooke, she said finally, this is not the first time she has done something like this. Remember that group project senior year? The one you stayed up 3 nights finishing, and she presented like it was mostly her work. Your mother defended her then, too. I had forgotten about that project until Lena said it out loud. Or maybe I had made myself forget because it was easier than admitting the pattern had been there for years. I started keeping notes, I admitted. Dates, what she said, what my mother said afterward. It feels insane. It is not insane, Lena said. It is evidence, and you are going to need it. I did not know it yet, but that was the moment the real work began. Not the kind of work that paid the bills. The other kind. The kind where you stop pretending the people who share your last name will ever choose you over the version of you that makes them look better. I spent the rest of that week doing exactly what Lena had suggested, even though every new line I typed into my notes app tasted like something I had swallowed wrong. The bitterness sat low in my throat and would not move. The next morning, Ethan stopped at my desk again, this time without coffee, and with the kind of tight expression that meant he had been thinking about something overnight. He glanced around to make sure no one else was close enough to hear. I was not going to say anything, he said quietly, but your sister called the office yesterday afternoon. She asked to speak to whoever was handling the new startup account. When I told her you were the lead, she laughed and said she was just making sure you did not get overwhelmed again. Then she asked if I could forward her the latest client notes so she could help you stay organized. I felt my face go hot and then cold at the same time. My older sister had never worked here. She had no reason to call my office, no reason to ask for my notes, and certainly no reason to speak to Ethan like she was managing me. What did you tell her? I asked. Ethan's mouth tightened. I told her I do not forward internal documents to anyone outside the team. She got quiet for a second, then said something about how family should not have to ask twice. I hung up after that. He did not say the rest out loud, but I heard it anyway. He had heard the same thing I had been hearing for years. My older sister believed access to me was something she was owed. I thanked him and promised I would handle it. He nodded, but he did not look convinced. Later that afternoon, he sent me a message on our internal chat. If you ever need someone to confirm dates or times on anything, I have a good memory. Just saying. That small offer sat with me for the rest of the day, like a lifeline I had not known I needed. By Friday, the pattern was impossible to ignore. I went back through old shared drives and email threads from the past 18 months. 3 separate projects where my older sister had suddenly helped after I mentioned them in passing to my mother. In each case, the final presentation or proposal had carried her name in a more prominent place than mine. In one case, my name had been removed entirely from the version she sent to a mutual contact. I screenshot everything. I dated the screenshots. I added them to the note on my phone with the same flat, sarcastic little comments I could not seem to stop writing. Of course she would call it teamwork when she took the only part that mattered. Of course my mother would tell me to be grateful she left me any credit at all. The notes were not for anyone else yet. They were for me, so I would not let myself forget how long this had been happening, while I kept making excuses for both of them. Saturday morning my mother called again. I let it ring 3 times before I answered, already bracing for the conversation I knew was coming. "Your sister is worried about you," she said, skipping hello the way she always did when she wanted to deliver bad news disguised as concern. "She said you have been short with her all week. She is only trying to give you a hand, Brooke. You have always been so independent. Sometimes it comes across as ungrateful." I stood in my kitchen with the phone pressed to my ear and watched the morning light move across the counter. Ungrateful. That was the word she reached for every time my older sister took something that belonged to me. "I built that deck," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "She sent it without asking and put her name first. That is not helping. That is taking." There was a long pause. When my mother spoke again, her tone had sharpened into the one she used when she decided the conversation was over. "Paige has always been the one who knows how to make things happen. You could learn from her instead of fighting her every step of the way. She told me she is willing to split the commission on this new client if you just stop making it difficult. That is more than generous." Split the commission. On work I had done alone, on a client I had found alone, on a strategy I had written alone. My older sister was offering to let me keep half of what was already mine, and my mother wanted me to thank her for the favor. I ended the call without agreeing to anything. My hands were shaking when I put the phone down. I opened the note on my phone again and added the date, the time, and the exact phrase my mother had used, "Stop making it difficult." That afternoon, I met Lena at a small coffee shop near the university. She listened without interrupting, while I told her about the phone call, about Ethan's warning, about the old projects I had found. When I finished, she pushed her coffee cup aside and leaned forward. "I have been waiting for you to see it," she said. "I did not want to push you before you were ready. But your sister has been doing this since we were in college. Remember when she told that professor you were struggling with the capstone and offered to take over the research for you? You ended up with a B, and she got an A on the same paper. Your mother called it sisterly support." The memory landed like a stone. I had forgotten the details on purpose because remembering them meant admitting the pattern had never been an accident. Lena reached into her bag and pulled out an old notebook. "I started writing things down years ago. Not because I thought you would ever use it. Because I could not stand watching you blame yourself every time she did this. If you ever decide you want backup, I have dates and names too." I stared at the notebook. My best friend had been quietly keeping records of my older sister's behavior for years, while I kept telling myself I was overreacting. The bitterness in my chest twisted into something sharper. That night, I texted Ethan. I did not give him every detail. I just asked if he would be willing to confirm in writing the dates my older sister had called the office and what she had asked for. He replied within minutes, "Already wrote it down. Send me the note file. If you want me to add anything, I have your back on this." 2 people outside my family had seen what was happening and had chosen to stand with me instead of pretending it was normal. That fact felt more dangerous and more necessary than anything my mother or my older sister had said all week. Sunday evening, my older sister texted me directly. The message was short and wrapped in the same fake warmth she always used when she wanted something. "Hey, just checking in. Mom said you were upset. I really think we should sit down this week and figure out how to split the workload on the new client so nobody feels left out. I already told them we are a package deal. Let me know what works for you." "A package deal?" She had told the client we were a package deal without asking me. She had decided my involvement, my time, and my name belonged to her to offer or withhold. I did not answer right away. I opened the note on my phone instead and added the new message word for word. Then I added one more line underneath it, the kind of line I had been too afraid to write until that moment. "She is not helping. She is controlling who gets to keep what I built." I put the phone face down on the table and sat in the quiet apartment with the weight of everything I had documented pressing against my ribs. For the first time in years, I did not feel crazy for noticing. I felt something colder and clearer settling into place. My older sister had spent years rewriting my work as her own and calling it love. My mother had spent just as long telling me to be grateful for the theft. Two people outside that circle had already stepped forward with proof and promises to stand beside me. I was done pretending any of it was normal. The next move would have to be mine. I spent the next 2 days turning that decision over in my mind, like a stone I could not put down. Every time I tried to talk myself out of confronting them, I opened the note on my phone and read the lines I had written in the same flat, bitter tone I could not seem to shake. My older sister had taken my work, wrapped it in her name, and handed pieces of it back to me like charity. My mother had called that theft generosity. Two people who were supposed to protect me had spent years teaching me that my wins only counted if they could be credited to someone else. Lena met me at the same coffee shop on Wednesday evening. She brought the old notebook she had shown me before and a folder of printed emails and messages she had saved over the years. When she slid the folder across the table, I saw my own name on several of them, always in the context of my older sister explaining why she had to step in and fix things for me. "I did not show you this sooner because I did not want to be the one who made you see it," Lena said. "But you are seeing it now, and you do not have to do the next part alone." Ethan joined us 20 minutes later. He had printed the internal chat logs from the day my older sister called the office and the follow-up message she sent him afterward, the one where she asked him to keep an eye on Brooke so she does not get in over her head. He had also pulled the metadata from the shared drive, showing the exact times my presentation files had been accessed and edited by someone outside our team. "She tried to get me to agree that you were struggling," Ethan said quietly. "When I would not play along, she changed tactics and started acting like she was doing you a favor by taking over. I have the messages if you want them." I took the papers with hands that felt steadier than they should have. 3 people outside my family had handed me proof that the version of events my mother and my older sister had built was a lie. The lie had been expensive. It had cost me credit sleep and the ability to trust my own memory. I was done paying that price. We decided the confrontation would happen at my apartment on Friday evening. Neutral ground. No audience except the 3 of us, and whatever evidence we could lay out on the coffee table. I texted my older sister that I wanted to talk about the client, and that I would prefer to do it in person. She replied within minutes with the same bright, effortless tone she always used when she thought she was still in control. "Of course, Mom and I can come over around 7. We can figure everything out together like a family should." She had already looped my mother in without asking me. That detail went into the note on my phone with the same sarcastic little underline I had been using for weeks. Friday evening arrived gray and heavy. Lena arrived first with coffee and the kind of calm presence that made the shaking in my hands ease a little. Ethan came 10 minutes later carrying a folder of printed evidence and the quiet, steady anger of someone who had watched a colleague be slowly erased. We laid everything out on the coffee table in neat stacks: dates, messages, edited files. the old college project Lena had documented, the office call logs Ethan had saved. The pattern was so clear it almost looked deliberate. My older sister and my mother arrived at 7 on the dot. My older sister walked in first, smiling like she was arriving at a celebration. My mother followed already, wearing the expression she used when she expected me to apologize for noticing something uncomfortable. My older sister glanced at the papers on the table, and her smile flickered for half a second before she recovered it. "What is all this? Are we doing some kind of presentation?" I stayed seated. "We are doing the truth. Sit down." They sat. My mother kept her purse in her lap like she might need to leave quickly. My older sister crossed her legs and tilted her head in that practiced, concerned way she had perfected. "Brooke, if this is about the client I already told you, I am happy to split everything," she said. "You do not have to make it into a whole thing." I picked up the first stack. "This is the deck I built for the startup. The version you sent them had your name in the header and mine in a footnote you added later. Here are the timestamps showing when the file was last edited by your account. Here is the email you sent the client saying we were a package deal without asking me." My mother made a small dismissive sound. "This is exactly what I was worried about. You are turning a simple misunderstanding into some kind of attack on your sister. She was trying to help you." Lena spoke for the first time, her voice even. She was not helping. She was taking credit that did not belong to her, and this is not the first time. My older sister's smile finally slipped. She looked at the papers, then at me, then at my mother as if expecting backup. My mother reached over and patted her hand. "Paige has always been the one who knows how to get things done," my mother said. "You have always been too sensitive about these things. Family does not keep score." I felt something crack open in my chest, the same place where the bitterness had been living for weeks. The crack widened into something rawer. "I kept score because you taught me that my work only mattered if she could claim it," I said. My voice shook on the last word, and I hated that it did. "Every time I built something, she stepped in, took the visible part, and you called it love. You called it support. You made me feel crazy for noticing." My older sister leaned forward, her tone shifting into the wounded one she used when she wanted to flip the script. "I cannot believe you are doing this to me. After everything I have done for you. Mom is right. You are making this into something ugly because you cannot stand that I am better at the business side." Ethan spoke, then calm and precise. "She called my office and tried to get me to forward her your internal notes. When I would not, she asked me to keep an eye on you and report back. I have the messages." The room went very quiet. My older sister's face changed. The charm drained out of it, and something harder took its place. "You are all ganging up on me," she said. "This is exactly why I have to step in sometimes. You cannot handle things on your own." That was the moment the last thread of control she thought she had snapped. I stood up because sitting felt like I was still asking permission to speak. "I handled everything on my own," I said. "You just kept rewriting the story so it looked like you were the one holding it together. And Mom helped you do it every single time." My mother stood too, her voice rising. "How dare you speak to us like this in your own home? We came here to help you, and you are attacking us with a bunch of papers and strangers." Lena answered before I could. "We are not strangers. We are the people who refused to lie to her about what you were doing." The breakdown hit me then, sudden and unstoppable. The weeks of carrying the notes, the nights I had stared at my phone, wondering if I was the problem. The years of swallowing the same story my mother had fed me since I was small, it all rose at once. My eyes filled and my voice cracked completely. "I trusted you," I said, looking at my mother first, then at my older sister. I kept telling myself that if I just worked harder, or stayed quieter, or let her have the credit, you would eventually see me the way you see her. But you never did. You only saw the version of me that made her look better. Tears ran down my face, and I did not wipe them away. The bitterness that had been living in my chest for weeks finally had somewhere to go. It poured out in one long, shaking breath. I am done being the one who makes everyone else comfortable by disappearing. My older sister opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since I had known her, she had no polished answer ready. My mother looked at the papers on the table like they were evidence of something she had not expected to be held accountable for. I picked up the folder Ethan had brought and held it out to them. "These go to my boss on Monday," I said. "The client already knows the truth because I sent them the original timestamps and the version with my name restored. You can leave now. I am not splitting anything with you. I am not meeting with you. And I am not pretending anymore that we are a family that lifts each other up." My mother's face hardened into something I had only seen directed at other people before. "You are going to regret this. When you need us again, you will remember who was actually there for you." I met her eyes without flinching. "I already remember, and I am choosing the people who were actually there." They left without another word. My older sister did not look back. My mother closed the door harder than necessary. The apartment felt larger once they were gone. Lena stayed and made tea. Ethan sat on the floor going through the papers one more time, quietly organizing them for Monday. Neither of them asked me to stop crying or told me I had overreacted. They just stayed until the shaking in my hands eased and the raw place in my chest started to feel like something I could carry without it crushing me. On Monday, I walked into my boss's office with the evidence and the restored client deck. He listened without interrupting. By Wednesday, the client had confirmed they wanted to work with me directly, and the credit for the strategy was returned to my name. My older sister's company reached out to mine, asking to be removed from any joint communications. The promotion she had been circling quietly disappeared from her own internal updates within a week. I did not hear from my mother or my older sister again for almost a month. When my mother finally texted, it was a single line, "I hope you are happy with what you have done to this family." I did not answer. I had already decided what family meant to me now. It meant the people who handed me proof instead of asking me to swallow another lie. It meant Lena checking in every few days without needing anything in return. It meant Ethan forwarding me internal updates, so I would never again be the last to know what was being said about my own work. It meant choosing myself loudly enough that the people who had spent years rewriting me finally had to hear it. The breakdown had been ugly and necessary. The quiet that came after it felt like the first real breath I had taken in years. I still keep the note on my phone. Sometimes I open it and read the sarcastic little lines I wrote when I was still afraid I was the problem. They do not sting the way they used to. They just remind me how far I had to walk before I stopped letting other people narrate my life for me. If you have ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping yourself, I hope you know you are allowed to pick the second one. I am still learning how to do it without apologizing. Some days it feels like the easiest thing in the world. Other days it still feels like the hardest. Either way, I am not going back to the version of me who made herself smaller so other people could stay comfortable. Thank you for staying with me through all of this. What would you have done if you found yourself in the same position?